Northern Health BC, but they aren't providing the documents needed for BCPNP. I'm also working as a support worker with a private institution. What should I do now? If you also work as a personal support worker, you could qualify for the express entry healthcare draws for the personal support worker nurse aid, but you need to make sure what occupation you are in. Are you a nurse aid or you are a home support worker? So that's something you have to kind of be very careful about. In terms of health authorities, yes, they have backed out. A lot of them are not providing with the support anymore. Things are changing, so you might have to look for alternatives with that. Is there any issue to apply study visa in masters next week after getting refusal for tourist visa in June? You can do it. There's no foundation, but it's just you have to make sure that your intent is clearly visible in the application and your reasons of return to your home country is also demonstrated properly. As long as you're able to demonstrate that, should not be a problem. What documents we need to apply PR in case of common law? In case of common law relationships, you have to make sure you're demonstrating that your relationship has been a marriage-like relationship for almost a year now, not almost, actually more than a year now. So as long as you're able to provide that, and then you're able to show that you have shared your expenses, your living is shared, you have been living on the same address for at least 1 year. So these documents can go in. You could have a joint bank statement, utility charges or utility bills can be attached, which has both of your names on it. Um, if not both, let's say one of the utility has one person's name and other one has the others, then you can combine them and show that you've been living together on the same address. What about nurses to apply for Canada with India and Europe work experience from Europe? They can do it, definitely. As long as your experience falls within the last 10 years, you could qualify for the express entry. For category based selection, it has to be within the last 3 years. Is the Atlantic Immigration Program still in force? Yes, it's a permanent program right now. So, yes, it is in force. Bhumika, I've answered the question. 27 is going to be a low wage in Ontario again. Depends which province you're applying under. Is there difficult to get LMI from UAE as a truck driver? Um, so when we say LMI is basically a job offer. A job offer is something that you can get. It's not. It doesn't have anything to do with. It doesn't have anything to do with where you're living or what country. It doesn't matter. It's just a job offer. You could get a job offer depending on where you're applying, how the employer is reacting to your resume, and things like that. The new policy change in visitor to work permit, does it affect people applying for spousal open work permit? I'm on visitor record and want to apply spousal open work permit in October. Can I apply or not? Yes, you can. Spousal open work permits are not affected by this policy. That policy only applies to people who are applying with the offer of employment, not for the other category. So for spousal open work permit, you're basically going to be applying under the LMI exemption code, C41 or C47, depending on your spouse's tier code of experience or current employment. Do you process DS 160 visa? We do assist with, but we do not assist with rescheduling the appointments. That's for sure. No, Geeta, I answered your question twice, I think. Senior healthcare worker in UK, how can apply for Canada? We need to assess what specific position you are at right now. If your occupation is under the express entry healthcare draws, then yes, you could qualify. Otherwise, you could also qualify for provincial nomination programs by the provinces that are targeting just solely based on experience, such as Ontario. They don't need the job offer for that, just your experience. You can get in touch with us, and then we can definitely assist and then assess your profile. Updated the residence address of primary applicant under spousal sponsorship, but the updated address is still not reflecting in the account. What can I expect to get it up? When can I expect to get it updated? What you can do is you can call the customer service of IRCC and confirm whether it has been updated. As long as it's updated in their records, it should be okay. Whatever reflects should not be a concern. What if I've not declared common law on my post graduation work permit and my boyfriend also did not declare at the time he got PR? Um, if you guys were in a common law relationship at the time of post graduation work permit, or at the time he was a permanent resident, and now you try and do it, if you try to kind of cover that duration, it's going to be a problem. It will be misrepresentation. So please do not do that. Um, as long as at the time you were applying for the permanent residency and became a permanent resident, so whatever time they asked you what your marital status is and you did declare it that it's single, then it's supposed to be single. If it's not, it's a big problem. One common misconception is, when does the common law relationship starts? It basically starts after you have completed 1 year of residence together. It doesn't cover that first 1 year period. So let's say you started living together on January 1st, then it's going to be the next January 1st. That's when the common law relationship starts, not the in between part, even if your intention is to do that. I've been self employed for 3 years in construction in Canada for company Ontario. Can I apply for permanent residence? Self-employed experience does not count for Canadian experience usually, unless it's under the express entries category based selection. So their category based selection do consider self-employed experience, but they're not going to give you any points under the express entry category. They will accept it just for the sake of that 6 month validity or the eligibility period, but they won't give you any points when you create the profile and say that it's a self-employed in Canada experience. Is there any immigration program for BSc nurse and 1 year experience in India? Absolutely. At this point, if we talk about programs and then something which is easy for people, it's going to be for the nurses who have experience as well from back home. Now, Express Entry, Ontario's Human Capital Priority Stream, both of those options would be a great option for you to apply for PR. My spouse has received ITA with CRS 508, but in that he mentioned that the spouse is non accompanying. But I am in Canada. Can I apply for spousal sponsorship after receiving PR confirmation? Yes, you can do that. Absolutely. So if you are going to be a non-accompanying spouse at the time of ITA, make sure you're mentioning that you're non-accompanying for certain reasons. So let's say he was not meeting the CRS and that's why you were non-accompanying. So as long as you mention that, should absolutely be okay. There shouldn't be any problem with the sponsorship later on. No one is receiving the call at IRCC. No, they do. We have been calling IRCC as well, and they do receive the calls. My uncle is in Canada. He has PR, and I'm refugee in Pakistan. So I want to visit Canada. Is it possible or not? It's unlikely that your visitor visa will go through because of your status in Pakistan, but definitely it's you can try. There's no yes or no in this question. So Devinder asks, I've already 2 years experience in Canada. I'm in India for a vacation of 3 months, so I can start trade job here for 3 months and then 3 months in Canada. Will I be eligible for trade category draw? Yes, you will be eligible. So basically, any experience that you have outside Canada, any experience you have inside Canada, everything will be joined and clubbed in together for the purpose of express entry. So yes, you can use that. What if I want to get PR through small business? Please share some explanation on it. How can I get it? How much I have to invest? When we talk about small businesses, we're going to be talking about business immigration. It's not going to be through LMI or anything. There's no so if we talk about owner operator LMIs, it's not there anymore. So that practice has been that program has been shut down. So if we're talking about small business, it has to be through business immigration. And when we talk about business immigration, you have to make sure that you show that there was either experience or there's already an existing business you're running. So there are a lot of factors that goes in depending on which province you're applying to. Would it be okay to drop studies and work under LMI in closed work permit, and could it help in permanent residency? It depends on your profile. It depends what kind of experience you have from back home, what kind of education you have. Um, just if let's say you're a grade 12 graduate and you don't have any experience from back home and you're planning to apply for LMI based work permit, it might not help, might not at all, because getting to a CRS above 400, it's near to impossible at this point. Express entry with 11 months experience. You can create the profile, but if you are invited to apply for permanent residency, do not submit that application because that will be refused, because 11 months will not consider you as the relevant required experience. 12 months is the requirement. But if let's say you receive the invitation but you don't submit the application until your 12 months have been completed, that's a safe bet, so you can do that. Hello, ma'am. I'm applying for Ontario RN LMI. Can I also file for PR process at the same time? Currently, I'm working in India. Yes, you can. I already have 2 years experience in Canada. Okay, I've answered that question on YouTube. I'm working in Canada from 2022 October as a line cook. Came in Canada as a positive LMI closed work permit. What are the ways? Again, it depends on your current CRS scores. Also, it depends on the province you are in right now. Depends on the city you are in right now. If you have any provincial nomination for that certain position available, so it entirely depends on your profile. There are people who, with 1 year experience and LMI, are able to cross 500 CRS. So if you are able to do that, yes, express entry could be an option. But even with that LMI, if you are at 450s, then it's not going to help you at all. I'm a Canadian PR and have applied for spousal sponsorship. The PA is currently in the US and I'm currently visiting PA for a few months. It is necessary for me to live in Canada while application is in process. No. As a Canadian permanent resident, if you want to apply for spousal sponsorship, you only have to be in Canada at the time you're submitting the application. It's recommended to stay in Canada at least until you receive the sponsorship eligibility. Now, even if you don't and you have an expected return date, it's still okay, but always try to maintain that employment connection with Canada, because that's where the officers are concerned about. But as long as you submitted the application and then you're outside Canada, it's completely okay. Can I apply for express entry with 2 years of full-time experience in healthcare outside Canada? Shall I apply only in FSW or some other categories as well? Thank you. Um, for the federal skilled worker category, they're not conducting draws if we're talking about specific occupations, but in healthcare, you're still going to be eligible under the category based selection. So yes, you'll receive the invitation, as long as your experience falls within the occupations of healthcare. the immigration rules changes from the last 2 weeks, is it going to impact the international students' permanent residency or not? Um, Absolutely, it will. You have to make sure that whatever changes are going on at this point in the Canadian immigration, align your profile according to that. If you're not able to align it, if your experience is not aligned, if you think IRCC promises you a permanent residency when they're giving you a study permit, it's a very wrong approach. You have to figure out your path yourself. What about transport draws? Waiting for that. How much time it will take to get decision? I've applied on 16th May 2024, waiting for 3 months. What kind of application are we talking about? If it's express entry, usually it's a 6 month process, could take more time as well. There's no fixed timeline. In Ontario, let's say a hair artist or salon business which is not registered yet, but I can register it. Sales is not more than 30K, so I can invest in business to get PR, but I need to know how. Geeta, you need to reach out to us in our office, and definitely I'll be able to assist you with the entire process for business immigration. It's not something that I'll be able to answer in one line for you here. I studied 1 year course, then I tried one more year study. I received another study permit, but then we decided not to study further because of PR pathway. Can we can visible with 1 year study? I worked in the, sorry, I don't understand the question. What about chances to get an international student stream in Ontario? Explain now. Also make a video on it. Okay. International student stream is a good pathway, but the expression of interest points, the scoring factors for this stream, they are quite complex. There are a lot of scoring factors, and the only problem that I see in this OINP expression of interest is that there's not much room for you to improve. You all, it's not like you can improve your profile and then apply. You have to basically either change the employer altogether to get a jump on those points. That's the only problem that I see in this category. But as long as you're under the trade, healthcare, STEM occupations, yes, you could receive an invitation because that's basically being targeted at a little lower points. But for the general ones, it's quite high. Yes. We do have a video for international student stream, I believe, on our YouTube as well. It's going to be the OINP programs that we're talking about. You can have a look at that as well. Will these changes affect applications already submitted? Usually, no. Any LMI application which has been submitted, any work permit which has been submitted, it's going to be assessed as per the rules of the date it was submitted, not any changes which are going to happen in future. I worked after college completion with a co-op, different work than course, for full time. What should I mention in personal history and PR submission? Um, if you had work authorization at that time to work full time, then you can mention that this is an employment that you had. But if you did not have work authorization to work full time, then that's a problem. LMI, work permit outside Canada, medical admin assistant. Medical admin assistants are only targeted at this point with job offers by Ontario, but otherwise, it's not an occupation which is being targeted in express entry. Do we have to file taxes in common law together? Keeping in mind, I've been living with him for 2 years, sharing lease. Yes, you should be filing taxes together as common law partners. That way, the assessment's going to be different based on your status. Right. If we specifically talk about the LMI changes that has been announced in this week, there has been a lot of commotion, of course, that's what we know, but it's just the wage that has been affected. So your employer is not ineligible to apply altogether. All they have is limitations. They have to apply under the high wage category if the unemployment rate is above or at 6%. Also, they have to keep in mind that they are only helping 10% of their employees through these LMI programs. They cannot hire any more temporary foreign workers through the LMI program. What is the median wage in Ontario? It's 28.39, I believe. When would the caregiving program reopen? We are expecting the news to be announced, because the program that has been announced right now, it's not, the guide is not properly issued. So until we know that, we're not sure what the program requirements are going to be. But generally speaking, it's CLB level 4. It's going to be minimum high school education, relevant education or experience, and job offer from an a Canada employer. Now, as long as you have these four things and you have everything ready, usually they accept applications in January. They reopen the whole quota, and this time the only difference is it's going to be direct permanent residence application. There won't be a work permit in between. So you might have to supply them with proper documentation to support, to prove your work experience. That's something which you should be focusing on in terms of home support worker and home caregiver pilot programs. LMI work permit processing time is 11 weeks for Pakistan, but it is taking too long. When we expect decision? At this time, work permit applications are taking a lot of time, probably around 4 to 5 months as well. So you have to hang tight on that. मेरे CRS स्कोर 472 है. मैं कैलगरी फूड सुपरवाइजर हाँ. So my employer is not eligible for LMI on PGWP. Can you help me find employer? We do not provide any kind of recruitment or job placement services. So you have to find that either on your own, or you have to maybe find people who are helping with the recruitments. 22 to 2450 is considering as low or high wage. It's a low wage, Rajni. I'm a registered practical nurse and have 7 months experience. Can I apply for PR now, or do I need to wait 1 year experience? Um, so, the basics of an express entry profile is you have to have 1 year of experience. It could be from outside Canada, it could be from inside Canada. Now, unless you have that, you won't be able to create the profile. It will render the profile ineligible each time you try and create that. So, yes, either 1 year from back home, and then you add whatever you have from Canada. That will help you create the profile. Also, you have to make sure, if you don't have 1 full year Canadian experience, you're going to be eligible under the federal skilled worker category. And to be eligible under the federal skilled worker category, you first have to meet the points of the grid. So you have to have at least 67 out of 100. That's the minimum grid that you have to pass before you can create a profile. Any PR pathways? I'm on PGWP in Alberta. If you are in Alberta, there are two things that you could focus on. One would be the Alberta Rural Renewal Program. If you are able to gain 1 year of experience in any tier code, tier 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you will be able to apply under the Rural Renewal Program with the help of your employer. So you can submit an endorsement application. With the help of the endorsement, you'll be able to submit the PNP application and then the PR application. You just have to make sure Alberta, when we talk about rural renewal, it's not Calgary or Edmonton. It's going to be the rural communities, the small communities which are part of this rural renewal program. Can the wage rate be changed after LMI has been submitted? My LMI is at 27, and if it's changed to 28.39, will it help? Since the LMI is already submitted, it's not going to be affected by the new changes. So even if the LMI is going to be approved at a low wage, it's still absolutely okay. It will not render you ineligible in any way because it's already submitted. If extension of visitor is not received but LMI is approved, then what to do? Yeah, that's going to be a big concern. um, what I would recommend is wait for that visitor extension for you to go to the border and apply for work permit, but um, be very sure of what they're going to ask you, how you got that job offer, what qualifications you have, documentations related to qualifications, your employment confirmation letter, your pay slips, everything has to go in to prove to the officer. And be very confident. If you think that you might not be able to represent yourself properly, hire a representative to represent you at the border, and they'll be able to assist you with that application as well. But ultimately, it's going to be you who will be answering officers' questions. Is 2525 low wage in Ontario? Yes. I want to know about meat cutter PR options in BC after 2 year diploma and score 7 in IELTS. If you have a job offer, that's a different story. Meat cutters, you have to see what kind of help your employer is providing. Accordingly, you can see the PR options in BCPNB. Can one person have applied to two different programs, example, Express Entry and Caregiver program? Yes, you can submit two different programs. That's not a problem, but it's a duplicate efforts, duplicate money that you'll be paying to IRCC. So things like that would go in. The announcement in fall for PSW is PR on entry. What would be the criteria about would a PSW from the UK? How would that work? Fatima, you're going to need a job offer from a Canadian employer. That's one of the requirement, and you'll need CLB level 4 English, minimum grade 12, and relevant experience related to the position that you're getting in Canada, be it the caregiver or the support worker. One thing I would like to add again, the program is not yet open. They will still release more information on that, and then accordingly, you'll be able to apply. I'm medical office assistant. Can I apply for PR? If you are a medical office assistant, it is under the express entry category based selection under the healthcare draws. But if you are a medical office administrator, then that occupation is not under the category base. But it's a tier 3 position. You can still apply under express entry if you have a CRS which is going 500 and above, and then you could qualify for the Canadian experience class draws. My undergraduate degree is completing in April 2025 in Ontario. What are the PR pathways in Ontario for me? Undergraduate degrees do not specifically give you any additional PR pathways in Ontario. It's the master's stream and the PhD stream which has PNP options. So you still have to go through the regular express entry or job offer based or experience based PNPs or PR options. If LMI is submitted before at 27, then there are any chances it can be approved. Of course, it will be approved if everything else is in order. Just on the basis that it's a low wage and it's not meeting the unemployment rate, it's not going to be affected if it's already submitted. This certain fact will not affect it anymore. अल्बर्टा में पीआर हो सकते हैं ओंटारियो से 1 साल की जॉब के साथ सिक्योरिटी की। हाँ जी, आप अल्बर्टा में परमानेंट रेज़िडेंसी डेफ़िनिटली अप्लाई कर सकते हैं। रूरल रिन्यूअल स्ट्रीम में सिंस जो सिक्योरिटी गार्ड है वो टियर 4 की पोज़ीशन है। एज़ लॉन्ग एज़ आपका एक्सपीरियंस पिछले 18 महीने में यू हैव 12 मंथ्स ऑफ एक्सपीरियंस एंड यू आर एबल टू अप्लाई द एप्लीकेशन विदिन दैट सर्टेन पीरियड, आप अपनी एंडोर्समेंट की एप्लीकेशन लगा लेते हो, देन येस यू आर एलिजिबल, आप अल्बर्टा के रूरल में एलिजिबल हो जाओगे इस पाथवे के लिए। If advertisement is going for low wage, can we change the rate in order? Yes, you can do it. If you want to change the rate after the advertisement is running, you can edit the advertisements. Yes. What's the success rate for HNC cases? I'm planning to apply for a mother. She is on visitor visa. HNC cases की सक्सेस रेट बहुत कम होती है. I would say it's somewhere around maybe 20 to 25%, and then probably a little over it's probably lower than that. So if you have solid grounds to apply for humanitarian, that's how you proceeded. But just on the basis that you got your permanent residency and now you want your parents to visit you and apply for permanent residence, and they don't have any other pathway, and you want to opt for agency, it will not help you. It will not help you at all. It's going to be a direct refusal. You have to make sure that you have to demonstrate hardships. You have to demonstrate the issues, the problems that your parent will face if they're not able to live with you in Canada. You also have to demonstrate how they've been surviving for these entire years before you were applying for this application. So if they were living outside of Canada, you have to show how they were surviving. If she was okay, then again it's a negative it's a negative factor for your HNC application. Can you please tell me, if one apply for LMI as shift supervisor position in Wendy's in London, Ontario, then it will lead to refusal as per new rules? Is it low wage? Mansi, I think I checked yesterday. For July, London's unemployment rate is above 6%. So yes, it does fall under the new category, but that rule is going to be applicable from September 26th. That's one thing. Now, if the application is already submitted, the new changes will not affect it. If you are going to submit after September 26th, do not submit under the low wage category. You have to submit under the high wage category. That is, your wage has to be above 28.39 as of today. If they change that wage in the future, you have to correspond to that certain wage. Easy way to get PR in BC. Easy is not there anymore in Canada. There's no easy way to get your permanent residence. You have to work your way through to get your PR, be it any province, BC or any other province. You have to either have experience in the targeted occupations, or you have to have a job offer by an Ontario employer, a BC employer, and then you'll be able to apply. That's the only way. If I move where it would be easy, so I can easily apply for PR. It depends on your experience. It depends on the job offer that you're going to get. If you're able to get a job offer which relates to your prior experience, Nova Scotia is the best option. Their permanent residency, their provincial nomination goes in. There's no draw or anything. You can just submit the application, but the processing time's a little longer. They could take about 5-6 months to process that provincial nomination itself, and then you'll be applying for federal PR application. My PCC is 1 year old and I didn't visit my home country. Would that still be valid? Yes. If you did not avail your country wherever you got the police clearance from, it's still valid. If let's say you do visit, then no, it's not going to be valid anymore. What is the rate of plasters draw? Sorry, I don't understand the question. Can I move to Alberta right now? Work permit ends in 2027, but I have no job to help in PR in Ontario right now. Any options? Yes, if you have your work permit ending in 2027, absolutely yes, you can move and find an employment. If you don't have any work experience yet, you might want to start there itself. But if you do have certain work experience, try finding employment in that certain occupation itself so that you're saving time. But again, one thing, yeah, you have to be very careful about in Alberta. They accept your experience as 12 months within the last 18 months. If it's beyond that eligibility period, so let's say you have 1 year of experience in Ontario and then you move, you just have 6 months to find the job to apply for the PNP. or the endorsement. If you're not able to do it within that certain period, you might have to start that experience altogether, because as and when you the time passes, you're going to be gaining new experience and the old one's going to be out of the eligibility period. So again, 12 months within the last 18 months. My OINP application is in decision in progress. My closed work permit extension expired on June 4th. Currently on visitor record. Am I eligible for 2-year work permit extension? If yes, how? Meet right now, the provinces themselves have not specified on how they will issue the letter of supports to extend the work permits, but they will soon. So we're waiting on that, and most likely, you being an applicant under the provincial nomination, as in your application is still in process, so you will be eligible for that certain letter of support as well. But let's wait and hear. Let's wait to hear from Ontario, and once we do, we'll know more on how you can extend your work permit. But again, if you applied for your ONP already, and at the time you submitted, you had a valid work permit, and later on you've maintained your legal status, it's absolutely okay. You'll be okay. Can you tell me how to get to US without visa? Unless you're a Canadian citizen, you cannot. Would Francophone Mobility Program gives 2-year extension of work permit and 50 points as well? No, they don't. They don't give you 50 points, but they give you work permit extension, and it's up to the officer's discretion. They can give you a year or 2 years. It depends, Mansi. Bhumika, you can contact our office for the appointment, and definitely they'll be able to assist you. My employer mentioned the NOC code in my job letter previously, but not providing it on the current date letter that I asked for in order to submit my documents. Would that be a problem? No. As long as your job duties correspond to the knock code, even if the knock code is not specifically mentioned on the employment confirmation letter, you're absolutely okay. But if you have a letter which was previously issued as well, and it's same, the job duties and everything's mentioned are identical, you can submit both of them together, and then it will again help officer assess your application as well. Is home support worker a 6-month experience or 9-month work experience? Um, if you are planning to apply under the occupation in demand category, then you need 9 months of experience. If we're talking about the caregiver pathway program, the previous one required 6 months of experience. The new one, we're not sure yet. They are yet to announce what the requirements are going to be for the work experience for home support worker and caregiver programs. Perfect. Okay, let's see. A lot of questions have been asked about the provincial nomination extension based news that has been announced recently. So, the provinces haven't announced how they're going to select the candidates to whom they will issue letter of supports. But all those who have not submitted the provincial nominations yet at all, or they're not even eligible to do that, do not rely on this work permit extension policy. It's not for you. It's only for people who have an active provincial nomination application in the pool. And because provinces have been, lagging in terms of the timeline of those applications, they are, they are, it's an exception. It's an exception which has been provided by the IRCC to provincial nominations to provinces to help people who have submitted the application. That's all. You can request your employers to support you with the LMI extension as well. Sorry, LMIs and then work permit extensions as well. Maybe that way you could continue working with the employers. Maybe have a talk with them, make them understand the process. If you are not sure, talk to me, talk to the representatives who are out there, explaining you how the provincial nomination process works, and definitely it could kind of help you maintain your worker status. If your agent added a wrong document and forged, will withdrawing help avoiding misrepresentation? How to proceed in this case? Absolutely 100% yes. If you think that a misrepresentation has happened and it has come to your attention, you withdraw that application right away. Okay. Now, if any decision or a misrepresentation has been decided by the officer, it's going to be on you. It's not going to be on the representative. Don't think that you can blame it on the representative and get out of the situation. It's not going to happen. IRCC expects you to confirm all the documents and all the information that has been submitted in the application on your behalf before any submissions are made. So if you think or if you think that saying that the person did it, the agent, the ghost agent, the consultant, anybody did it, and it's going to get you out of that situation, it's not going to help you. If it has gravely affected your eligibility, your application, you can reach out to College of Immigration Consultants. They'll be able to file a formal complaint only if they are registered consultants. So again, that's a recommendation. It's probably going to help you in future if you go with the process with a regulated consultant, and that way you know that there's a recourse. That person will be reported somewhere. If you're going with an agent, there's no way out of that situation, to be honest. Nobody's gonna hear your complaint. It can go to CBSA. It's up to the CBS's discretion to take up that complaint or to take any actions on that complaint, but it's not confirmed, and it rarely happens. My provincial application is in decision in progress, and my LMI has taken 6 months already. If I get my non-express entry PNP approved and my LMI, what should I do? So, if your provincial nomination gets approved, you will be able to submit the application for federal permanent residency. Now, if your work permit has expired, you'll be able to maintain your legal status through visitor record. Mostly, it's just Ontario skill trades, which requires you to have a legal status in terms of work permit at the time of the application. But all other applications requires you to maintain a legal status in Canada. So again, now let's say you submit the provincial nomination based PR application, and simultaneously you maintain your temporary status through work permit based on the approved LMI, and then you can continue working until you receive a decision on your permanent residency. One common misconception of people, I hear quite a lot, is that they've submitted a PR application and their work permit or study permit or visitor record is expiring. And they think since the PR is already in process, they don't have to submit any application for temporary residence. It's an absolutely wrong approach. Um, Both of those pathways are different. You are required to maintain a temporary status throughout until your permanent residency is approved. So you make sure that you either apply for visitor record, work permit extension, however, whichever you're applicable or eligible for. For spousal open work permit renewal, do we need to mention the partner's job offer, and is there any other document do we need to update? Yes, Yuvraj. For the spousal open work permit renewals, it's a very common mistake and a very common reason for refusal. If you are not submitting the application with job letter and pay slips, you might not be eligible. One thing I would like to clarify here, you call it renewal, you call it extension, but it's a new program that you're applying under. When you are coming as student's spouse, you are applying under the LMI exemption code C42. But now, when you're going to be a worker's spouse, you will be applying under C41 or C47. So that's a different application, different category. Make sure you're meeting the requirements before applying. Usually what we see is, if somebody is on a postgraduate if somebody wants to apply for a post graduation work permit, the spouse applies right away with them, but the PGWP holder don't have work authorization, then that spousal open work permit gets refused. Make sure you're attaching, even it's part-time job, you're attaching the job letter and pay slips, and that could help getting an approval on the application. uh, if we want to change wage rate in existing running advertisement, in that case, are we have to start new advertisement, or we can endorse with the running advertisement? We can edit the same advertisement, it's absolutely okay. Can you please let me? I'm eligible to apply spousal open work permit from India. I'm on PGWP working tier 5. Yes. Even if you are a tier 5, the common mistake a lot of agents do is submitting a spousal open work permit on C41, whereas it's for C47. C47 is for those PGWP holders who are at tier 4 and 5. My wife works in Tim Hortons. Should I apply for closed work permit to be on safer side, or open work permit is okay? Closed work permit will only happen if you have a LMI based work permit. And if your wife works in Tim Hortons, and if it's if she's on a closed work permit, then again you can apply for open work permit if she's working. So okay, question. Usually this is a very common mistake people do. Let's say you are on an LMI based work permit, but you are on a tier 0, 1, 2, 3. Even if it's a low wage or a high wage, you're still eligible for the spousal open work permit for your spouse. But if we talk about tier 4 and 5 positions, so let's say somebody's at a Tim Hortons and at a tier 5 position, food counter attendant. If the position falls under the low wage category, they're not eligible to submit spousal open work permit application. Only tier 4, 5 high wage category positions are eligible, which you will rarely see. If we see people working as a food counter attendant, they would never be working at a 28 or above wage, right? So make sure the eligibility is met before you submit the spousal open work permit, rather than just going with a job letter and pay slips. Express entry with 11 months experience. Jasraj, you can submit the Express entry profile, because under Express entry, what they do is they count from month to month. So if you're submitting an application in January, they're going to assume it's January 1st. And as soon as December hits, they're going to assume that the 12-month period has been completed. But in technicality, let's say you started on 31st January, the full year is going to complete on to 31st of January, right? Now, you can create the profile, put your profile in the pool. If you receive any invitation in the meantime, do not submit the permanent residency, do not submit the provincial nomination. If you do that, the application will be refused. If you don't, if you wait, because you have 60 days for the express entry and 45 days for the provincial nomination, for Ontario specifically, I'm talking about. So you would still remain eligible as long as that 12-month period has passed. You have completed that 12-month period and then you submitted the application. US visa appointment expected time, maybe 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years. And be very careful with people who are helping rescheduling these appointments, because we've been hearing a lot of complaints that they are changing the password, you have to call. the US embassy and then get that recovered, it's very difficult. And I even heard, so whatever fake email they create with the applicant's name. And in US embassy, they're more skeptical when they're kind of trying to recover that account for you, because they will say that the name on the email is yours. How come it's not yours? So make sure you know who you're taking help from. Will withdrawing help in avoiding misrepresentation? If yes, does that affect the future application? Do the officer checks back with the withdrawn in future while considering a different application? Yes, it's up to the officer's discretion. They have records for that, and if you submit a proper explanation saying that it has come to your attention recently and then you have actively decided to take an action on it, it's absolutely should be okay. But a proper submission, a proper letter has to be directed towards the officer for them to understand what the situation is right now. Okay, another concern that I've been hearing a lot is submitting caregiver LMI based applications for visitors in Canada. Now, the new rule has been announced recently, which is going to be applicable from September 26th. But for the caregivers in Canada, it has been applicable since a long time. They are not eligible to submit any LMI based work permits in Canada as visitors. If you're doing that, you would be receiving a refusal to process from IRCC in terms of the decision that they provide for that work permit. I don't know why people are doing it, but be very careful if that is something which has happened to you. You've been given, you had help with the LMI job offer, and now you're submitting a work permit, and the work permit decision is coming as not being accepted. Then it's a problem. So we have almost 5 minutes left. Whatever questions you guys have, shoot right now so that I can answer them. Perfect. Um, at this point, if we talk about, you know, a lot of representatives are coming forward and answering your, questions truthfully of what's really happening in Canadian immigration and how the rules are, what's the eligibility. But if you are still getting scammed or getting into um, consultations with people where everything seems too good to be true, please be careful. That's one thing I can recommend. For post graduation work permit after 1 year of course in Ontario, will I get PR later if I have 6 months more experience in the healthcare field? uh, Only 6 months of experience in your entire work experience within the last 10 years will not help you with the permanent residency. You need at least 1 year to apply for any category. It's only international student stream which is exempt from the experience category in Ontario, but mostly all other programs requires at least 1 year experience. Very few programs do not require, but most of the programs does. Express entry, for example, need 1 year experience before you can apply for any application, even if it's category based. So out of your, so what they say is, in terms of eligibility, your experience has to be within last 3 years of experience, it has to be 6 months. Now the minimum eligibility for express entry has to be met before you do anything else. So the minimum eligibility is either, if we talk about Canadian experience class, it's 1 year of Canadian experience, and corresponding to that, your NOC code, if it's 1 2 3, your CLB level has to be 5. If it's if it's 0 or 1, it has to be 7. If it's 2 and 3, it has to be 5. So make sure you meet those requirements. How much is the success ratio for visitor to study in current days? It's quite low. Already graduated but applied study permit extension on July 28th. Still didn't receive any result. What to do and how do I apply for my work permit? If you have applied for the study permit extension, see, now the problem that you're going to face is during the maintained status, if you don't have an approval on your study permit extension, you cannot work even if you apply for PGWP. And PGWP you can apply with your completion letter and unofficial transcripts as well. So depending on your situation, you make sure you're not working in the unauthorized period. Is there difficult to get LMI from UAE as a truck driver? You know the story for LMI. I don't think I have to. If you get a genuine job offer from Canada, you can apply for the LMI based work permit and then express entry transport occupation draws. But if it's not a genuine job offer, it's not worth the cost. So we're going to conclude in 2 minutes. If you guys have any more questions, you can go ahead and then send us those, and then we'll be able to answer. For caretaker course, we should get direct PR. No, there's no direct PR for any education in Canada. If you take any course, caretaker, personal support worker, even as a nurse, let's say you come to Canada, do a bachelor of nurse, that doesn't mean it will give you direct permanent residency. You either have to have um, a certain job offer in Canada and then be eligible for any provincial nomination program, or you have to have prior experience. It's all based on experience right now. Um, Solely education does not give you permanent residence most of the times. Perfect. So, if you guys have any more questions or you want to do a one-on-one consultations, you can definitely go in our bio and schedule the appointments, and we'll be able to answer those. And we'll probably be able to have phone consultations in person, whichever way you want the guidance to be delivered. I'm writing to inquire about the PR pathways. I recently completed my studies and planning to relocate to Alberta, but PR pathways. Okay. Depends on your Komal. It's going to depend on what kind of job opportunities you're getting. It's solely on that. Perfect. Okay, then. Thank you so much, guys. Hopefully, it was an informational session for you and you were able to get answers. Perfect. Thank you. Bye.